Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conversation Design podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest, Alexia Grassies from AirFrance. She's the product owner of Conversational and Social Developments. I had an amazing conversation with her about how they went from a very small chatbot with a very defined use case to a huge technology that is now powering a lot of the AirFrance conversations with their customers, how they faced COVID and its challenges, and what are Alexia's suggestions and advice for folks who are approaching the conversation design space. I'm going to be your host today. This podcast is brought to you by Bot Society. If you don't know what Bot Society is, think of it like Photoshop or Figma, but for chatbots and voice interfaces. If you didn't do that already, you can sign up on botsociety.io and try it out. It's free. And now, without further ado, here's Alexia. All right. Hello, everybody. It's Vittorio from Bot Society here. I'm here with Alexia Grassies. Did I pronounce your name everybody.
Right? That's actually Alexia Grassies, but that's not really easy, that one.
That's a classic Vittorio thing. I just butchered the name of the guest in the very first phrase.
That's fine.
Please introduce yourself to our community. I'm sure a lot of folks from Bot Society, from the conversation design community has seen what you're working on, but maybe they don't know you personally. So,
Okay. So as you said, my name is Alexia Grassies. I'm from Paris and I'm working as a conversational and social development product owner for AirFrance. And since several months now for KLM also. So as you may know, AirFrance is the number one French airline, and together with KLM, one of the world's largest airlines. So I hope you already flew with us. And so basically my job consists in working on chatbot and automation on our social channels, with a team of information analysts, business analysts, architects, developers, of course, in Agile. So maybe I'm working on that position since now 2 years, I believe. Time flies. It feels like it was yesterday, especially with that 2020 year. And so we are two pieces of a puzzle, I would say. One team is in charge of chatbots, automation, and social channel extension. So that's my team. And another one is in charge of the tooling for the human agent who take over when the bot cannot help. And so, our main focus is on facilitating, the customer service interaction on their preferred platforms. So we really aims to deliver the conversational experience and agent technology to support our customers in every step of their journey. That's it in a nutshell.
That's very interesting. And so, we've been working together. I think it's now more than 2 years now. And I think you guys have been, creating very interesting interactions and designs, especially leveraging the idea of, okay, can we help, our customers on a specific pain point and then expand from there. And testing with real people from day one. I remember your office in an airport in Paris, so you were able to just step out and see what people were saying. So I think it would be amazing if you could share a little bit more about what the bot does and how you arrive to evolve it at that point, and why is it so successful? Because I think one of the things that in our industry then not a lot of people like to talk about is that some projects just die out after some time because they're not that effective. And your case is a big counterexample where like the bot kept expanding and people kept using it a lot. So
Indeed. Thank you for the compliments. And it did. I think our use case worked pretty well, but of course there is a lot of room for improvement. But you're right. It's been now more than 3 years. I would say even 4, closer than 4 than 3, that we start the conversational and chatbot journey in AirFrance. So in fact, when we decided to open our first contact social channel, which was Messenger, we immediately had a huge volumes of requests, but really a huge volumes. And with this increase of incoming messages and the increasing expectation from our customers for real-time answers, the choice to move forward with automated conversation quickly appeared as the next step to improve the customer experience. So starting from that, we decided to focus on the customer's question where a human agent has no real added value to spend time to answer to it. So basically, I would say, every source where we can find content, API, backend, that could be a good use case for a chatbot. So I don't know if you remember, but the first use case was to focus on baggage. So we created Louis. So Louis is a French name, and that was the baggage assistant chatbot. So we
Can you explain a little bit why you focused on luggage and baggages? Because I think it's one of the things that when I try to explain it to designers who are approaching the space for the first time, it's very counterintuitive. Because when you think about airlines and chatbots, the first thing you would, the majority of the designers would think about straight up is, we should, allow people to book a flight or to check their flights. And instead, why did you end up focusing on luggage and why that was actually the right thing? I think it's a very interesting point that I see. It's counterintuitive at the same time.
So in fact, we are kind of helped here because that topic was part of the biggest request of customers. And we had two ways to see that is that if you go on Google Trends, you can see that a lot of people are searching online about baggage when it comes to airlines. So that's the first sign. But the real reason why is that we have human agents that are answering to customers when they were not chatbots, and they are still there, of course. And they kind of have case topics. So the reason of why the customer came, and baggage was actually a big one. That's a big irritant for customers, and that still is, that was, and that is. And we wanted to start with not a big thing that really requires a lot of call to API, a lot of, development, but that still would be useful for the customer. So we felt like a booking bot would have been too complex and also would have not answered to the customer request really quickly. But with baggage, this is always kind of the same question and always kind of the same answer. So we felt like the agent has no added value here, but a bot could actually do the work. So we started with that use case. So that's why.
That's very interesting. So basically, you start, instead of trying to start from, the business objective and working your way backwards, you started from the data, from the conversations that were already happening with humans, and
exactly.
And work your way back there. And why do you think was this effective? Because to be honest, like I've seen a lot of other bots, and even when you nail the use case, as I think you guys have done here, maybe they're not that effective, and so something must have been right. And what is your opinion about that? Since this, again, just for everyone listening, this was the first use case. Now the bot does much more, but
indeed. But for that first use case, I believe that what makes it really useful and efficient is that we actually try to have a huge FAQ. So that was kind of a work to have this all this content and have all these training sets to actually really train the bots to understand what we were saying. But our strength also is to try to have a guided flow, so kind of hybrid flow. I think we will come back to that throughout the conversation. But we try to not base everything on NLP, so that the user can rely on structure, a guided flow. And so our goal is efficiency. So really to have the customer's answer and not saying, okay, we want to do innovation and machine learning and that's it. We were trying to be humble a little bit and do a mix of guided and NLP flow. So I think that's what was our vision, and this is still our vision, and that's why it worked. And also because we really try to stick to what the customers was requesting and not about a strategy or something. We really stick to that.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting if you can expand a little bit on that, because sometimes we see folks who are trying to say, oh, we're sitting down to make a full NLP bot, or other folks who are saying the opposite. They're saying, oh, we don't want to do any, natural language processing. We just want to build a guided on the rail with buttons experience. And actually what you're bringing up is none of this, full on one side of the spectrum approaches work. And you try to strike something in the middle.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, what I mean by that is, of course, we are all excited by machine learning, by natural language processing. All this innovation is really fascinating and can work very well. That's for sure. But you cannot rely on NLP only, especially at the beginning, because it requires a lot of training first, a lot of effort, but also because your bot won't have the answer for everything. So you need to let your customer know what you can help him with. And as I think your goal, my goal, everyone's goal is to be the most efficient. So I really suggest everyone to go for hybrid flow, because also the channels really help here. For instance, Messenger is really nice because you have generic templates, quick reply, carousel. But it doesn't mean that you cannot do that hybrid flow on WhatsApp, for instance, where there is no generic template. So it's really up to you. But I think that's wise to not put everything on NLP.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. And I've also seen that it's like you said, like especially when you're starting out, having this hybrid approach allows you to move, the data and the NLP to the next stage faster, and also the users will learn from the bot faster. So that's very
exactly. Indeed, they will learn. Indeed, because this is kind of new for people also. So, and every bot has their own rules, but that would be nice that we have kind of the same codes, just like you have codes on websites, you have also codes on Conversational. And I think it's nice to just show what is your scope. Of course, you cannot show everything at first glance, but you can try to guide a little bit. It doesn't mean you cannot rely on NLP at all, of course, but it's just, I think really helpful. And I mean, again, it's about efficiency. And I feel that sometimes we really want to be innovative. So really work on that NLP, but sometimes, it's not going with efficiency alone, let's say.
Right. And I think it's also like the systems of natural language processing that you can use right now. They work really well if you are laser focused on, as you said, on the customer, on being helpful rather than like focused on research, which is great, but it's not like the objective there and should not be. So I totally agree with that. And can you talk a little bit? So this was the first use case, and then how did you decide to move on to the next ones, and what happened afterwards? Like how the team expanded and
so indeed. Well, we saw that this first use case worked pretty well. We saw that the number of cases handled from A to Z by the bot were quite impressive. So I don't remember the figures at that time, but what I can share to you is the figures we have today. And we have now around 80% of the customers' requests where you don't need to hand over to an agent for the baggage bot. So basically only 20% entering the baggage bot will end up with an agent, which is huge. Because, you can imagine the number of requests we now handle, and it doesn't end up with an agent. So that's really cost saving and time saving. And we say, okay, that's a success. So we should just continue. And so Louis' scope became bigger and bigger, and it even became a metabot. So which is basically the king of the bots. We will trigger the right bot depending on customer request. So it's a dispatcher. I guess you know what is a metabot?
Yes, but I'm deep into the trenches every day, so I think it will be interesting for our audience. Like, if you can expand a little bit on this concept that you basically arrived to the metabot from a design and like user experience perspective, and why do you think that as worked out? And I think not only in terms of development and, structuring the team and stuff like that and technology, but also from the customer point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's even really only for the customer that we did that, by the way. I believe, of course, there are always some technical reasons, but the first reason is really about the customer experience, because the more you get different skills on your bot, the more it is complex to really have a structure flow. And having the metabot as a dispatcher is really helping us having like a first step where the user start talking to us. So Louis will just introduce himself saying, "Hey, I'm Louis, I'm your virtual assistant. And then what can I help you with?" And he will just, on Messenger, for instance, push all the quick reply that kind of represent every group skill that he has. So it can be booking bot, disruption bot, loyalty program bot, which is called Flying Blue, check-in bot, and so on. And so it really helps understanding the need of the customers and also helping him finding the questions. So we felt like, metabot was the best reason, the best solution, to go with.
Yeah, and my experience as a user using Lou is that it's very natural because is mimicking a real life experience that I have, where I'm not going to talk with the same person at the airport if I have an issue with my luggage versus, I want to change my booking, or I may probably end up talking to different people. And so it's also helping me piggyback my virtual assistant experience to my real life one and making it easier to understand.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you're saying. It's indeed like a kind of a counter where you will have several persons depending on their skills, and that's exactly the same thing. And we always try to make that the most natural possible. And I think we will talk about it also, but like to really try to say how a conversation is going on in real life. Okay, so then we should stick to that and try to interpret that into the digital touch point. That's kind of the vision we have. So always try to start from what happened in real life and try to translate it in our channels, let's say.
Yeah, and I think what's very interesting here is all of those steps that we've been talking about. Those are all design decisions, like deciding to focus on luggage first, and then creating a metabot as a dispatcher. As you were mentioning before, there's always technical constraints and technical driven small decisions, but these big crossroads, those were all design decisions. So can you talk a little bit about your design process and of the team, and like how's that in your experience been successful?
So you mean kind of when you say design process, is it like what we learn from it, like what we usually do, or
yeah, exactly, like what you usually do, and how is the team like structured in terms of, okay, let's decide to do this. How do we get from 0 to, okay, we release the bot, in the deciding steps, and maybe which tools you're using to facilitate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so indeed, we always start from a customer need, and we see that customer need in the backlog of the agents, let's say. So that's really the agent backlog. So all the requests that customer has on social, where Louis cannot answer, it will end up in that backlog. This is actually hosted on Salesforce, and then an agent will pick that up. And depending on the topic of it and the amount of requests, we try to then deep dive into it. So if I take the example of refund, that we have a lot of requests on refund because of the coronavirus, of course, then we try to deep dive into, okay, refund is the first step. We know that a lot of people have questions on it, but what type of question exactly? And can we do something? And do we have a added value to do that? So we try, of course, to deep dive into it. And when we see that we can actually help the customer on our touch point, then we start thinking about it, thinking about the flow. And really everything starts from the flow. And that's where also, I'm not saying that because I'm talking to you, but that's where also bot society is really helpful, because it really sticks to what it will look like in live on our channel without any developments. So that's really just an easy tool. And you can first kind of explain what you see, what you would like to have in the flow. And it's also helping when there are some stakeholders, for instance. So as a PO, I create a feature, but then I also have some stakeholders involved in it. And when I propose a flow, I need to be visual. And I'll also need, of course, to test. I don't test every flow I do, but for big flows, then of course I try to test. And this is really useful to have a tool that allows you to create the decision tree a bit, and also to have this really design and look and feel just like if you were live on your channel. So this is how it goes. And then of course we talk with information analysts, business analysts, and we try to always have added value. So that's also something we always say is we want to avoid doing native flow if this is not relevant. And I think this is also an issue that a lot of people have while working with bots, is that you want everything in your bots. But sometimes this is not relevant, because every platform has their own constraints. And for instance, sometimes a website is just better to do something in terms of user experience. So that's also something we need to look at. It's just to be sure that we need to create a native flow for that or not. And then the other question we always ask is, can we personalize this flow? So can we really understand? I don't know. Can we link the booking to the customer that is talking to us? Can we really provide a personalized information thanks to API? And we always try to make things relevant in that process. And so we are working on Agile. So it means that every 3 months we have a new planning of 3 months, let's say, and we are working in sprints. So in Scrum, and we have a 2-week sprint rhythm. So, and we try to actually go live every day. I mean, if we can. Of course, we are not doing it, but this is the idea. This is the goal. Say, okay, we can go live whenever we want. And we are pretty mature on this, to be honest, which is really nice as a business, because it means that we can really help customers quickly. But that's it in terms of process.
That's very impressive. I think, like, having at least the idea that, okay, we can release an update to the bot every day. It's one of the things that I think it's very difficult for organizations to get to the point, but it's actually where you can really provide a lot of value to the customers, because if you can update the bot frequently, based on the new stuff that you've been working on, then you can really help a lot of people. So that's great. And I think also your point, I just want to underline it for the folks listening, your point about the questions that you ask, that not everything has to become a flow. And sometimes, the conversational interface may not shine on that particular use case. So you may want to focus on something else, or let's make it personal. I think those are very good points, because they insist on the strengths of what you're building, which is like a personal conversation. So you need to keep the focus there. I think that's very relevant. And we see that, especially when you're approaching the space, this is kind of a difficult mindset to get to, because the first instinct is just to take a form on a web page and bring it to the bot, but it's not the same thing.
Indeed.
So
I fully agree with you.
And I wanted to ask you about COVID, actually, because I think one of the or 2020, because one of the things that one of the industries that were most heavily impacted, I think, and everybody agrees on this, is the airline industry, and I think from going even one step further from the point of view of helping your customers, there were, I expect there were a lot of different dynamics going on, and so I was wondering if you could share, your experience, since it's not over, but the first year went by, and so
we can now say that it's been 1 year.
Yeah, exactly. And so I hope that it wasn't a easier for anyone, but I was hoping if you could share, I don't know how much you can share of this experience to that may inspire other product owners and other designers in the future, since you had to go through this very pivotal and I think unique moment in history.
Yeah. Unique moment. I hope so. But that was a particular year for everyone, I guess. So especially in the airline industry, just like you said. So basically, just to give you a little bit of context, we were already closing off flights to China beginning of 2020. Around January, I believe, and we were not prepared for that virus to actually be worldwide, just like everyone. But it really hit us on March when the lockdown announcement was officially made in France. And of course, with that, we had a colossal increase of customers' requests on contact touch points because all the flights were canceled and everybody was lost. So to give you maybe a bit of an idea, I think, last year I was saying in a chatbot summit in Berlin that we were expecting 40% growth in incoming requests in 2020. But in fact, we had 70 of rate of change between 2019 and 2020 in terms of number of sessions. So we had way more, of course, requests than we were expecting. And on top of that, European legislation changed a lot regarding refund and voucher policies. So the first wave of questions was really about flexibility of bookings. How can I postpone it? If not, can I get a refund? Can I get a voucher? And these were all valid questions. So, okay, we were in the front line, of course, because we are a servicing channel. And what we did first to tackle this huge amount of requests on social media is that, we apply the same logic here than for the other topics. We put automation. That was not even a question. So we developed, I think in a couple of hours, a coronavirus update chatbot, which is quite simple. And everything is on dialogue flow because we knew that things would change every day, every minute even. Like there are contents and policies that change all the time, and we wanted to prevent development for every change. So that's kind of an advice to not, code everything for those type of bots, which we now call this bot a campaign bot because this is not supposed to stay forever, but it has to be flexible. And so this is what we do for, let's say, as a first trial, let's say, first move. And then throughout the year, of course, we had more time, and also the questions evolved a little bit on the customer side. So we really try to stick to that again, to really stick to our customers' need. And for instance, we developed a refund and travel voucher status flow. That's a good example, by the way, because you could have said, "Oh, we need a refund or voucher bot. We need a bot that can do that."
Right.
But in fact, that could be the assumption. But in fact, when we deep dive a little bit with agents and the requests they have, it was not about how can I ask for a voucher. It was more about, okay, what is the status of my refund? What is the status of my voucher? How can I convert my voucher into a refund? So you see, when you really stick to what the customer needs, you will cover better the need. Of course, I mean, it's logical, but that's really something you need to really stick to, I believe, because it's really important for your bot to be successful. Is that if the bot covers something that the customer doesn't care about, well, okay, you have a nice bot, but it's not useful. So this is what we did. And there were also other questions, of course, of where can I fly? What type of document or test should I do? And then again, I think this is a good example that we say, okay, we are going to redirecting to the website, because the website was well made for that, and it was updated all the time, but it was not using any API for that, so we could not connect and try to get this information on the bot. Plus, there were too many information, and this is really not something we want. It's not user friendly to send 12 messages inside a conversation to explain something about sanitary crisis, right?
Right.
So that's what we did.
This is very interesting. So, like, I think it's building up on the topics they were touching before, kind of like in a rushed kind of emergency situation where you need to respond fast, but you're actually building up on the experience of before, right? So you came up with a metabot, and now you can attach a temporary bot just for Corona that will be, if I understand correctly, that you would redirect folks with questions on the topic to using this metabot structure that you already had. And then you already knew when to work on the strengths of, okay, this is where we really need to automate, and this is where the website would do a better job, because, we have an entire page worth of information that it doesn't make sense to communicate via message.
Exactly. Indeed, this is what we did. And also we did a small kind of test with both society, because we were not sure where to put that refund and travel voucher status flow, if it should be part of a bot already existing, so booking bots, because this is related to your booking actually. So if we are connected to APIs to check your match with your booking reference and your name, and we could see if there is a travel voucher or a refund in process or done, for instance. And we were not sure if we should put that there or put that in the coronavirus bot, or even create a quick reply for just refund. And when we done some tests, we saw that actually, and that stick to the reality of the numbers we have, a lot of people go on my booking bot because they feel like, okay, I'm going to have personalized information. Coronavirus bots, they feel like they are going to have generic information, which is the case. So this is great, because this is what we have indeed. And sometimes, and we felt like it was more effort to actually put a refund bot. And also it could be a little bit, it could give a deception to the customer, because they will maybe think that we can cover all the things than statues, or you can create a voucher here. This is not the case, and this is not feasible. So we try to really stick to what would be the most relevant for customers and the most natural for customers. So we put in a My Booking bot, for instance. But you see, every time, this is really interesting to try to test, even if this is a homemade test. You don't need like a thousand of people. I mean, you can try and see what are the reaction of people, and having a bot society flow that really help you like have this kind of true flow, live flow, without developing anything. This is also really, really useful.
That's great. Yeah. And I'm very excited that you say this, of course. And I think what's interesting about this example is that you had one overarching like structure question, and you wanted to answer it based on the user expectations. And so you created a design to test that out with a relatively small amount of folks compared to the traffic of your bot, which was still, relevant and substantial, and you took it from there.
Indeed, exactly.
I think that's one of the best uses that you can do of this type of tests, because it's difficult to, like, it's not practical to test everything, but sometimes figuring out this kind of implicit expectations of the users, because this sounds like an implicit expectations where, okay, I want to talk with my booking bot about my voucher. It's a step that if the users will if the implicit expectation is that, then you test it, you discover it, and you solve it. So
exactly.
It's very interesting.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, we don't do that for every flow, just like you said, of course. But yeah, sometimes also your bot by heart. So your intuition, you don't have the fresh eye anymore. So sometimes your intuitions are not good enough. Of course, You need to stick to the tracking and the numbers you have. But we have these numbers saying, okay, maybe the majority of people go on my booking bot, so maybe we should put that refund flow in that. But we wanted still to test some things to know if it was really the right way to do it. So sometimes, even though you have all the information, so let's say the practical information and rational information, that's still great to do some testings because you can learn a lot with only 20 people.
Right. And I really like your insight about the fresh eyes, because it's a lot of folks who approach the bot, they're maybe using it for the first or the second time. And you've been working on this quite a lot, so it's difficult to take a step back. But even the feedback of 20 testers will give you that feeling. So
exactly.
I can totally see that across a lot of different teams and use cases. So I think it's a great insight. I wanted to ask you something about that I ask all of the speakers on this podcast, which is, which advices would you give to young designers or product managers who are approaching the space or thinking about working on conversational interfaces? What insights or advices would you give them if they're just say moving from, okay, I've been working on websites and apps, I'm thinking about working on chatbots and voice. What would you advise them to think or to do when switching?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. Well, first of all, I would say welcome to this beautiful world, because this is really a nice things and really passionate about this. And I think first, what we have to have in mind is that this is the most natural thing in the world. So you should not be scared. I mean, since the dawn of time, conversation is the most natural and intuitive way to make things happen, right? So when you think about it, the advent of internet and the modern era, is it in English? Modern era, I would say, makes us change our way to buy from offline to online. So website comes with specific user experience, and so with constraints. We needed to create several pages to formalize what we were doing offline. So look for a product, next. Ask for availability, next. Put it in a virtual basket, next, etc. So we, as a human being, adapt ourselves to this online process. But at the end, conversational is more natural than any website flow. It's just asking for it and having it. So just like we used to do in real life, do you have these jeans in small, for instance? Yes, okay. And you pay, and that's it. Of course, what I'm saying here, with the one-click Amazon, you don't have all these steps, right? But what I want to mean is that you really should feel like this is natural, this is intuitive. So don't be scared of it. And it's even just you're back to your roots, because we are having conversations since we are babies. So this is really something natural. So that's the first things I would say. Then I would say that conversational touch points, I think have just as much qualities as any other digital touch points, and even more, because the only thing we have is we create intimacy. In fact, your conversation will be in between a family group conversation and a friend conversation. That's even truer, I think, with WhatsApp those days. But that's true. And you are not on a separated app or a website. So that's really powerful. So that's really nice to work on a touch point where you are going that intimate with the customers, right? I don't know what you think about it, but I feel like this is really a privileged position, kind of.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I think, it's as with any power comes a lot of responsibility. So it's, being able to stay in that kind of level where you are, among the contacts of the person, you are among, the folks who they talk the most to. And staying there with credibility and intimacy, as you said, it's I think it's one of the things that by looking from the outside looks very difficult, and then from the inside you discover it's very difficult.
I get it. Yeah, I fully agree. And so, yeah, I would say that this is really something that you have to have in mind when you're working on social channel, because social channel, conversational doesn't equal social channel, because of course you can have conversation. On your website also you could have a booking tool using conversational. You can have a web chat. We do have a web chat on AirFrance, but there is no bot yet. So of course conversational doesn't mean intimacy all the time, but that's still building a relationship that is really looking like a natural one. So I think it's a good it's just a good opportunity to create a link with your customers, and of course helping him, or at some point selling also. Of course we are not into that for now on AirFrance side, because we have a lot of room of improvement for servicing and a lot of things to do. But if we feel like our customers are really asking for, I don't know, buy some options, ancillaries on social, of course we will be the first to do it. The first, I'm not saying the first, but we will be really glad to do it. But for now, this is not really a big intent we saw from our customers, I would say. But anyway, just to say that, this is really, I think, something exciting about conversational, is that you build a real relationship with the customer, kind of. And what I want really also to highlight, because this is really a big learning I got from working in that team, is that IA is working better with human than without human. I know sometimes, and I think this is also a lot in the media and the news, is that we are scared of IA, and we feel like it's going to remove human, it's going to delete all the positions of human, and that we will not have job anymore and all the stuff. And I think that this is not true. In my case, this is really not true. And I can give you also an example. I think I read on the book that was a French author, and the book, I think this is only in French, I'm sorry, but the book is called, if you translate, Lord of Robots. And the author was taking the example of PayPal. So you might know the story, but PayPal was losing a huge amount of money because of online card frauds. And so they created an algorithm to detect them. But the thing is that hackers were always one step ahead. So the algorithm was not efficient at all. And they looked for a solution for a long time. And the one they found is really simple, is to combine this algorithm with humans. This is what we are doing on AirFrance. But let's say, so without the computing power of the software, PayPal would never have succeeded in fighting fraud. But without the know-how of its human beings, of its employees, the algorithm would have come up against the adaptability of and intelligence of the hackers. So you see, so this is really about combination, and it's up to you to find the right balance. But it's for us, it's really a teamwork, and our agency, Louis, as really a helpful assistant. And sometimes it's really great if you can handle all the from A to Z requests. But sometimes he will just play a role, because we know that he won't do much for one type of request, but he will try to gather as much as information he can, so he can help the agent after that. So the agent doesn't have to check again about the booking, about this, about that. So yeah, that's really a teamwork, and that's a good combination, a good combo, I would say.
Absolutely, yeah. I think those 3 points are great for anyone approaching. So thinking that conversation is the most natural thing, thinking that it's also one of the most personal interfaces you could ever design and work on, intimate and personal. And then this idea that AI and humans are actually superpowering each other, and nobody's gonna get replaced, basically. But it's a lift up on both sides, yeah. And
exactly.
This is your experience, but I think on the last point, I've seen this across the board, where if you're able to really provide value, that actually creates a lot more opportunity. Of course, like you can always bring the technology in the direction that you really want, if you really want to. But if you focus on the customer needs, you usually end up there. So I totally see that.
Yeah, that's a virtuous circle. Virtuous circle, I think we say. But that's really lifting everyone here. So I feel like this is, you should not be scared of that. And then I would say, more practical advice, but of course, what we say before is that it's okay to have guided flow, not base everything on NLP. That's really like the biggest thing. Because when I arrived in the team, I was like, okay, I'm going to do IA. And IA was for me, really machine learning and all the stuff. And in fact, well, you want efficiency. So really don't be scared to have guided flow. This is not a competition. This is the only competition you have is just with yourself, and you want to just answer to your customers. And then of course that can be obvious, but deliver the information to the user in short steps, because you should again think about a real conversation and what it looks like. And of course, when you ask one question, you don't want I don't know, 20 minutes monologue, right? So this is kind of the same thing in the bots. And I think also what's some advice I could give, of course, this is only my personal experience, but I feel like a lot of people, and I saw that in a focus group, doesn't really trust bots. They feel like they are useless, they feel like they are not efficient, etc. And they also think that this is FAQ or generic answer, and that you cannot have any personalized information. I don't know what's your experience in that, but I feel like a lot of people think this about the bots.
Yes, I think setting the right expectations about both what it can do and it can't do, in order to prevent this kind of approach from users, it's very, very important. And so I don't know if you have specific advices there. I think the community would be interested, because this is one of the things that, like, building trust over time and from the very first moment on both the capabilities and the not capabilities is very hard.
Yeah, that's really hard indeed. And we faced also this issue that a user wants to talk to us or hear about Louis. He tried once, but we are at the very beginning of the experience. Of course, Bolt is evolving and improving throughout the years. So he tried once. He said, okay, that was not working. Bye. I will never use that again. And he has his own opinion on it, and that's it. And you're dead. But this, we cannot really do anything for that. What we can, of course, is improve our bots. And what we can do is actually, that's still linked to the guided flow. I think that when you just start a conversation and you kind of present what you have in store, let's say, and say, okay, I can help you with that. That's setting the expectation, just like you said. And also, I feel like you should really quickly show them that you are going to ask some question that will allow us to have personalized information and answer to give. And that's something we did also, and you should make the best of the channel. For instance, with Messenger, there is something called account linking. I don't know if you heard about it. And that's a really nice feature where you can actually link your accounts, so your Messenger account with our loyalty program account, which is called Flying Blue. So that can work with any other business. And that allows, of course, to recognize the customer better, but that allows also to really give a personalized experience where, for instance, you can, rather than asking what is your booking reference and your last name, you can say, oh, okay, I see that there are 3 bookings in your account. So which one you want to have details on, or things like that. So it really gives a nice and customized experience. And this is not that much effort to do. And this is something allowed by the channel. So I feel like sometimes the expectation of the customers are really low, and even too low, and they don't take into account the improvements of the bots throughout the year. And that's a little bit of pity.
Yeah, and at the same time, I think it's a great opportunity because, like you said, like the moment that you can link the account either via Messenger feature or any other technology that you may leverage on, depending on the channel, you can create that magical moment where the user is not expecting, the bot to be able to recognize them, and instead they immediately say, "Oh, I see you have 2 bookings. Which one you need help with. And that kind of like all of a sudden brings the bar, at a higher level, delights the user, and then you kick off from there on a different note. So I agree with you that the bar is low. Sometimes it can be, it may seem frustrating, but I also see that most of the time is a big opportunity to, score a lot of points in the first part of the interaction and just start building trust very fast.
Mm-hmm. Fully agree with you. Indeed. And I think that's, like kind of creating this kind of personalized conversation also makes it more natural. And I think that makes, of course, I think it's really important that for the customers, they know who they talk to. So let's say, and this is what we try to achieve. When the user talks to Louis on Messenger, for instance, of course, he will introduce himself. And also the avatar, so the image, will be not the AirFrance image, but the Louis bot image, so that he can really understand he's talking to a chatbot. And when we hand over to an agent, then we change again the image, and the agent will introduce himself again. So, and this, on top of, for instance, small talks. So small talks is when the customer is saying, I don't know, thank you or hello or a compliment or an insult. The bot would react just like a normal person saying thank you or saying, oh, what's wrong? Or so those little things together, added together, are building a really natural conversation. So of course you have to set rules to not break all the flows. But I think that's a combination of a lot of little things that makes the conversation really natural. And I think this is nice to have this.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of building on the topic you were mentioning before, where you have a mix of guided experience buttons and the natural language processing, and all of those delights experience, all those small talks. This is actually all natural language processing. So you actually have quite a lot of that in those bots. It's just not the only way of interacting with the bot, and it's kicking in when you most need it, like in those cases where you build a lot of trust and relationship fast. So
exactly,
yeah, that's great. Well, Alexia, this has been an amazing conversation. I think we went through a lot of things, a lot of insights. I'm sure our audience will find it very interesting.
I hope so.
If they want to learn more about what you guys are doing in your team, what should they do?
They can contact me, of course, on LinkedIn. I would be glad to, of course, help. I cannot, of course, having a 1 hour session with everyone, but of course, I mean, I think what I already shared is quite extensive, so it will give something to start with. But of course, they can contact me. I would be happy to share and discuss this.
All right, sounds great, Alexia. Again, thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you, Vittorio. Yeah, really interesting. Thank you for the conversation.
And I'm looking forward to see where the bot evolves. I'm really excited again by the capabilities and how big it got. And so I'm really looking forward to see what's next there.
Nice, thanks.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye.
That's all for this episode. We hope you liked it. Subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this episode. We will continue to interview people in the chat and voice spaces in different fields. Know someone who could be a good fit or have a topic request? Let us know at info@botsociety.io or @botsociety on any social media. Bot Society is a conversational design tool. With Bot Society, you can design voice and chatbot interactions in the same way you design apps and websites with Sketch or Figma. We have a free plan. Check it out on botsociety.io.